Hi, Sally Taylor here with the third of 3 videos on insect pest management in peanut. This one is about southern corn rootworm. So what happened? Well, what happened is what we all anticipated happening, and chlorpyrifos residues were revoked in all food products, and the tolerance level was set at 0, meaning that if it's detected, you are over tolerance level, and that food will be pulled from shelves. Can you use the remaining stock if you have some? No. So return it to a dealer. You can save it for non-food crop applications. So if you read the label, there are some other crops on there and other pests. Make sure that's not food, and make sure to do it soon, because it should be going away altogether somewhat in the near future. If you're interested in disposing of it, talk to your Virginia Cooperative Extension agent. We have pesticide disposal programs in the state that are free of charge, even at the dealer level, which is just fantastic to me. Unfortunately, we had pickup for the Southeast last year, and it won't come around for another 3 years, but they are willing to make special concessions to our area, knowing that people may be getting rid of large amounts of lures banned that they can no longer use. So just let us know if that's you. We're happy to help. Will my residues be detected if, let's say, I accidentally used it this year? Yeah, I would bet that they will be. So looking at USDA market basket surveys in 2019, which is the last year I was able to pull the records for, out of 9 peanut butter peanut samples, 5 or 56% of those had a chlorpyrifos detection. So what are some facts? Well, what are we using chlorpyrifos for in peanuts? For the southern corn rootworm, it is a beetle. The adult is here on a peanut leaf for scale. The larva is this tiny worm-shaped grub here that's feeding on this peanut pod in the petri dish. The adults don't feed on peanut, nor do they live in fields. They're flower feeders. It's possible that they eat a peanut flower every now and again, but we haven't been able to observe them doing it. They migrate in to lay eggs from, I have July here, but really late June through September. So the earlier population is the one that's problematic, because the size of this worm, once those pods start to harden off, it's not able to penetrate the outer shell. The larvae are the injurious life stage. So they lay their eggs, the eggs hatch, the larvae burrow down and feed on the roots and the pods. For this whole system to work, for this animal to live, moisture is required for it to both lay eggs and for its larvae to survive. Here are pictures I've taken of injured peanuts. So I have the diamond here for scale of what size this hole should look like. All these peanuts at the top were southern corn rootworm injured. The bottom ones are not. These holes are too big. The animal does not get that big. So what else could it be? Thank God you're not in the live meeting, so I was going to make this a live quiz. So what's this big hole? What's this animal here? Wireworm. What's this? Southern corn rootworm. This, lesser cornstalk borer. So we worry about SDR when it's wet. We worry about lesser cornstalk borer when it's really dry. And then they can burrow into the plant itself, and the crown of the plant is oftentimes where we find them. You may see the plant or branches of the plant wilting, and they have a webbing, which is very indicative of their feeding. What's this? Oh, hint, it's right there, it's SDR. How about this one? Cutworm. Did you know cutworms can do that? Surprise, they can. Most of the time our in-burrow products take care of this. We don't see it too often, but it's possible. This is not a good picture of what that animal is, but it's the right size, the injury, and that's a white grub. So the same thing that eat corn seeds will eat a peanut pod if they can get it. Wow, what did that? Okay, cricket. And one more time, SCR. If you need help with any of this, please ask me or Maria, your local cooperative extension agent, and we will help you identify it when it comes time to dig your field. So how do I know when a field is at risk? And we've talked about this before. I know this is so much to review, and I really appreciate you bearing with me for this. This is almost like studying for a test that we've been preparing for several years now. Field history is the most important factor behind moisture. So if you've had high injury in that field before, you're likely going to have it again. Planting date, the earlier you plant, the better. So before May 2nd is better than between May 2nd and 15th, and both of those are better than after May 15th. And I understand a lot of that is outside of your control, but if you know you're in a high risk field, plant early. I will say that you need to pay attention to what that causes in your thrips and your tomato spotted wilt virus instance. And if you have problems detecting what that virus looks like, talk to myself or David Langston or your cooperative extension agent, and we will help you identify it. We hate going into the office. Call us. Irrigation. So if you're not irrigated, you're safest but not safe if you're going to have frequent rainfall. So frequent rainfall or periodic irrigation is going to put you in that middle risk category. Irrigated is at higher risk. Soil texture, because it follows that some soils contain more moisture, have higher moisture holding capacities than others, can increase your risk. So loamy sand, low risk; sandy loam, medium risk; loam, high risk. Drainage, well drained, low risk. And then moderately well, somewhat poorly, medium risk; high risk, poorly drained soils. There was a time where you could add this all up and get your score, and you still can. What makes it a little wonky is we don't know cultivar resistance that well anymore for the newer varieties, and that's something that Maria Belota and I will be working on in the next few years. So we'll keep you posted on that project. Let's talk about some more facts. So they can't survive if it's dry. Not only will the female not lay the eggs if the top of that soil is below a certain moisture level, but the actual eggs and the larva cannot survive if it's dry. Irrigation and wet weather make problems worse. I told you it was a lot of review. Rapid growth after rain can cause splits or creases on the pod wall, which can be confused with SCR injury. I'm less worried about you seeing that. Where I see it is where I'm digging in July and August and early September looking for this animal and looking for injury. You're unlikely to see this kind of injury towards the end of the season when you're digging. High loam content increases risk of pod damage. Poor drainage, high soil moisture increases the risk of pod damage. Late planting date and delayed rate of peanut pod maturity increase the risk of pod damage. We talked about that planted date. We did not talk about delayed rate of maturity. What can delay your rate of maturity? No, poor thrips control is one. Another is herbicide injury. And the good news, and this is really good news, is that our research, and this research goes back 30 years or more, shows that commercial peanut fields that are treated for southern corn rootworm do not need to be treated. So the chances are high that you're not going to see it at all, even if you don't treat. Even the high risk fields that treat are doing it because they're high risk. It doesn't mean that they're going to get it every single year. So I encourage you to know your risk, plan accordingly, maybe rotate accordingly, but also prepare yourself for the best case scenario. Like, let's be optimistic opposed to our normal. Just kidding, I'm always optimistic. What about yield loss to this pest? So like if you're talking about, well, my insecticide costs, if I tried some crazy spray program to exclude adults, you can expect for every % increase in mature pod injuries. That's not scarring on the shell, that's penetration of the pod. You lose 7 pounds per acre for every % increase. So it's not a huge loss. Scarification on the outer shell is much more common than penetration. So where are we with alternative insecticides? Because we're not going to give up hope, right? That there's an easy solution. One of them is plinizoline by Syngenta. This is an experimental product we've been testing here at Tidewater and some of our fellow researchers in Georgia. It has efficacy with in-furrow and chemigation applications. And I know that really does not help people that don't irrigate, but we're looking at different formulations of it. Best case scenarios, the earliest release date for this product be 2024. Though likely it could push into 2025, depending on the EPA workload. Don't hate on them, y'all. Everyone is behind from COVID. We've had a lot of questions about Steward at the 11.3 ounce 2 times. I have not tried it 2 times. Steward at pegging at the 11 ounce rate by itself once at pegging did not work. For us, we've tried this 8 different times with no success. Targeting adults in general has a very low rate of success, which is around 10% or less. Some years it's like we can't get it to work at all. Some years seems to do okay, but this is a really high risk gamble because they're continually coming in. The products don't have a super long residual, so you're spraying a lot. And then you're going to run into either a caterpillar problem or a spider mite problem. The spider mites aren't cheap to treat. Just to demonstrate to you, and I know this is super small, you can pause it at home, but I'll walk you through it real quick. So these bars are percent injured pods. So the taller the bars are, the worse the product worked. The light blue are scarred, the dark blue are penetrated, and you can see even when we have a lot of scarification, our penetration tends to be relatively low as long as you plan on time and do all those things to get your peanut to maturity. Sometimes you just have really bad luck, y'all, and I apologize. Anyway, the products we're looking at, so on the very far left, these are untreated. We had Lorsban, which was our standard. Not surprisingly, it looks really good. We looked first at Prevathon because of its systemic activity, but it did not have any activity against southern court rootworm, which we should have probably expected because it's not a caterpillar, but we had to try it, so Prevathon. The next thing is Steward, and this is the one application of 11 ounces at pegging. Here it was even higher than untreated. Here, a little bit lower, but not statistically so. And then here, again, it didn't break out from the untreated. The only thing higher was Prevathon. We also looked at bifenthrin, and this is spraying it every time that we went over a field, every time. So this is, 4 to 6 applications. This is not cheap nor an ideal solution. In one scenario, it did similarly as Lorsban, but it brought it down from control levels, but it wasn't a solution to the problem. Other times it did nothing and was higher than the untreated. This case, it did nothing. And in this case, it did nothing. So in this instance, 1 out of 4 times, and I'm not exaggerating your risk of secondary pest if you take this approach. The other product we looked at that didn't have any efficacy was this Magistine, and that's an organic product. So what are my recommendations is know your field risk, know how to identify injury, and if you don't, call experts. We're not going to charge you anything to help you out. We just want everyone to grow the best peanuts you can in the state of Virginia. Targeting adults has a low rate of success and a high rate of flaring secondary pests. This is my phone number and email. Call me anytime. If you miss me, leave a message. If you want to text, that's fine too. You can send me weird pictures of bugs you find, or if you just want to show me how good your crop looks, I get very few photos of that nature. Email me too, that's fine. We have a blog called the Ag Pest and Crop Advisory. If you Google that combination of words, or VT Crop Advisory or VT Ag Pest, you'll get there. You can subscribe to the content, or you'll get a newsletter every Friday letting you know what's going on, or you can just look at it periodically. We'll keep you advised of things like black light captures, like when to start looking for caterpillars and other issues that we're seeing in your crops. So I wish you a happy and healthy 2022, and I hope I get to see you in person before the end of the year. Take care. Provided I could do it.